In this video, we are building the production-ready authentication system. By the end of tutorial, you will master these 6 key concepts: user registration and login. First, we will set up the foundation of creating the logic for user to sign in and sign up. Now, password encryption. Security is the priority, so I will show you how to encrypt password using hashing. Ensure no plain text is ever stored. JWT token authorization. Next, we will show you how to implement JWT JSON Web Token to handle user session and identity. We will create protected route that only authorized user can access. Now, I will show you how to write custom middleware to intercept, request and verify token automatically. Finally, .env. I will teach you how to hide your sensitive API key and secret key in our .env file to keep your app secure. Before we touch single line of code, we need to understand the logic. If you don't get the follow right, your application won't be secure. So let's look at the full authentication blueprint. The request. Everything starts with the user. They send a request like login in our login or register from the client side to our server. But before reaching the login, the request hit the middleware. Think of this security guard. It checks, does the user have the valid token or not? If the answer is no, the middleware blocks the request immediately, no entry. But if the answer is yes, it passes the request forward to the controller. The controller then talks about the database to fetch or save user data, and finally we need response back to the user success. Now that you have the mental map of how data moves, let's jump into the idle and build this middleware and controller from the scratch. At the end, our folder structure looks like this because we are using the MVC architecture. Now we are starting our project. Go to the VS Code. Now you can see I am already created my backend folder in the VS Code. Now we are initialize our project in npm init. This create our package.json file. We are installing 6 dependency tool today. Express is our framework. Mongoose will connect our MongoDB and .env will keep our secret key safe. For security, we use Bcrypt to hidden password and JWT for user session. And last, config is used to access our .env file. Now let's create the heart of our application, app.js file. There is where we will configure Express and initialize our server. If you want to use ES module, then you want to write their type module. If you don't write, then by default is required. First we import Express, then we initialized it by calling const app equal to express listen function. Finally we use app.listen and pass port number like 5000. Let's add the console log so we know server is actually running. Now go to the terminal and write npx node m1 app.js, and here you can see our server is starting on port 5000. Now our server is running. It's time to define how our user data will look. Inside the model folder, let's create user model.js file. In this file, we are defining the user schema using Mongoose. We start by importing Mongoose. To create a model, we first need a schemas. Think of a schema as a blueprint of a structure for our user data in the database. We define 3 fields: username, email, and password. All them are type string and marked as required true. This means the database will not save a user unless all the 3 pieces of the information are provided. By adding timestamp true, Mongoose automatically creates 2 fields for us, created at and updated at. This is very helpful for tracking when a user joined our platform. Now Mongoose.model user schemas. This user model will now allow us to perform code operation like creating or finding user in the MongoDB. Now our data structure is ready. In the next step, we will handle the actual registration logic. To keep our project organized, we are starting a config folder with a file named db.js. This file will handle our database connection. First, we import Mongoose to interact with MongoDB, and we define our async function called connectDB. We use async because connection to a database in an asynchronous operation that takes some time. We use try-catch block. Inside we use try-catch block for error handling. In the try-catch we use await mongoose.connect and pass our mongoose.url from the .env file. This keeps our credential secure. If the connection is successful, we will see database is connected. If it is failed, the catch block will log the error. We write default connectDB because we need to connect db.js file with app.js. Now you need to go to the MongoDB app and copy the connection string. Now go to the .env file and write mongo/url equal to and paste this string and write there auth app is our database name. You can write anything what you want, and we write .env/config to access the .env file. Now we are going to app.js file to connect db with the app.js. We calling connect.db. Okay, now here you can see import connect.db from config/db.js. Now you can see database is connected. If database is not connected, then you can go and see your .env file and make sure your string is correct. Now let's build the brain of our application process. Inside controller folder, create user register controller.js file, and this is where the magic happens. In this file, we will create export const user register controller using async function, and we also use try catch block to handle error. Okay, now we write all the logic code in try block, and if anything is wrong in try block, we return error in the catch block. Return response.status 500.json and error message, and internal we also send the internal server error. Now in the try block, we extract username, email and password from the request body sent by the user. This check ensures the user don't send empty data. If any field is missing, we stop the processing immediately and return 400 bad request and message please enter all the fields. And check existing user. We use user.find1email to check if this email is already registered. This prevents duplicate account in our database. And we send the bad request user already exists in the database. We check if the passport length is less than 8 characters, then we send bad request 400. Passport must be at least 8 characters long. Never store raw password. We use bcrypt.hash with a salt of tend to encrypt the password before saving it. Even if the database is leaked, the password remains safe. Now everything is validated and secured. Then we save the new user to MongoDB using user.create, and we use the front of the password hash password because we need to encrypt password. After creating user, we create token JWT.sign JSON Web Token using user ID and JWT secret key. We store JWT secret key in the .env file, and now we write in the last expiry date 1 day. After 1 day, token will automatically expire. If you write 30 days, then after 30 days automatically expire your token. Then we store this token in our HTTP only cookies for secure authentication. If everything is okay, then we return response user registered successfully and with 201 status, and we take the user in the data. Okay, we forget to import all the things. Now we are importing. Import user from user model, and we also use Bcrypt and also use the JWT. And now this JWT key we write need to the env file. Here you can write to the JWT key, and you can write anything in key. And also you need to access the env file, so write import.env/config. Now our user registered file is complete. Now we need to create one more file in the controller folder, user login controller.js. In this file we will write all the user login function and logic. Now first we import all the required packages. JWT JSON Web Token, one is Bcrypt. We also need user module, and one is the .env/config to access .env file. Now we are creating export const user login function using async request.response, and we are using also the try catch block. Function we return .response.status 500.json and success false, and message error.message, and also show the internal server error. We start by taking the email and password from the request body. This is what the user entered in the login form. Before processing, we check if the user has actually provided both fields, and if no, we return a bad request 400 error and message please enter all the fields. Now we search our database for a user with the provided email. If the user don't exist, we send 401 unauthorized response, and the message user does not exist in database. Since we store the password in the hash format, we can't compare it directly. We use bcrypt.compare to check if the entered password matches the encrypted one is our database or not. If user password or encrypted password don't match, then we send the bad request incorrect password. After creating the user, we generate a JWT token using the user ID and our secret key. Then we store this token in the HTTP only cookies for the secure authentication. If all thing is okay, then we return response.status user login successfully with user data. Here I can write cookies. There is not cookies, this is cookies. Now we will be create one more controller, user profile controller. In the profile controller, now we will create the user profile function using the async and request comma response. Inside the try catch block, we write try catch block return dot response status 500 and JSON successful and message error message, and we will also send the something went wrong. Inside the try block, we extract the user data from the request.user. This data is available here because of our authentication middleware that we will discuss later. If the user is authenticated, we return Auth 200 OK status. We send welcome message also with user object containing all this profile detail. Now inside our project, we are creating a middleware folder. Inside the folder, we will create a file name auth.middleware.js. The main job of the file is to act as a guard. It decides which page a user can access after logging in and which ones are restricted. And first we need to import the necessary package what we use in our middleware function. First import JWT from JWT JSON Web Token, and now we need to import .env to access the env file, and we need to also use the user model. So we use to import user from model.user.js, user model.js. Okay, there we don't need the Bcrypt. Now we will creating the function auth middleware with using the async function, and we write in the request comma response and one is next because we need to navigate this page to the another page. Inside the function, we will use the try catch block. The try block will contain our main authentication logic where to verify the token and the user. If anything goes wrong or the token is invalid, the catch block will handle the error and send a clear message back to the user and something went wrong. We are looking to the inside the auth header. We check if the header exists and if it starts with the auth barrier, which is a standard way to send JWT token, and if not auth header, then we send the unauthorized user. Next we extract the actual token from the header by splitting the string. Now we decode use JWT.verify along with the secret key. This function checks if the token is authentic and hasn't expired, it is valid, and it returns the user ID. And just because the token is valid don't means the user still exists. We fetch user from our database using the ID and we got from the token. Finally, we attach the user data to the request object and calling next. This function is like a green light. It tells Express to move the next function in our route. We forget to write if not user then unauthorized user, so we write there if not user, then we send the message unauthorized user. Now that our middleware is ready, let's start up our route. Now I am creating a router folder, and inside it a file name is user_route.js. This file will handle all the URL path related to our user. First we import Express to use its built-in router. Next, now we initialize the router using express.router. Finally, we export the router so we can use it in our main app.js file. This keeps our code clean and organized. Our first route is post request to /register, which call the register controller in the controller folder. Now the second router is also a post request /login, which handle our authentication and user login controller. And the third router is /profile, is a GET request. But notice something different. Here we added Auth middleware before the user profile controller, because no one can access this route without login. You can see we import all the controller, and one last is we need to import user profile controller, and never forget to write front of .js. Without write this, you get error. And this file we need also add middleware app.useExpress.json, because without this our server don't understand the JSON data sent from the client. Now we need to integrate our router into the main application. In our app.js file, we import user router. We just created. We use app.use/user router, which means every route inside the user router will now be the fixed with /user. This is very important to understand because we used /user as the base path. Our final API endpoint will look like this. Now we will test all the controller in the Postman. Before testing in the Postman, we want to go to the user register controller and comment this line response.cookies, and you want to also go to the user register and comment response.cookies, because we don't need this code now. Now you can go to the Postman and click here the plus icon and create a new folder. The name of anything you can write. We write there authentication, and the authentication folder you click the plus icon and write here user register file, and make it method post. Make it and in the link you can write there localhost 5000 users/registered, and go to the body and go to the row and write there like this name. You can write email, anything, and you can write also the password, because in the register field we take 3 fields: name, email and password. So we want to write there this all fields and click here the send button. Okay, you can see successful user already existing means, oh, there is our this email is already existing in our database, so we need to change their email. They 1 2 3 4 5. Now go to the send button and click. Here you can see our all data is coming. User registered successfully, success true, name Bhavesh, Dev, and passport. You can see passport is stored in the hash form, and you can also see the user ID and created at and the updated at. Why we use in database the time stamp for that. Now our register is working successfully. Now we will create the user login. Click the plus icon and write there user login and make it method post and write there in the front of user URL login. We only require the email and passport in the user login body, because email acts as a unique identifier to find user in our database, and the passport is used to verify their identity. Now click the send button and you can see user login successfully. Here you can also see user ID, name, passport and password, all thing, but you can see one thing unique. This is token. You can see their token. Think like token is our digital ID card or entry passport for our future request, like check your profile. You just show this token and server instantly know who you are and what you can do. It's make our application secure and fast. Now we are creating our user profile to test our protected route. You need to add their link, localhost user profile, and go to the header and write their authentication, and we add the word barrier before our token, so the server know exactly what kind of authentication we are using. It's a standard way for API to communicate securely. Now we are sending the request. Here you can see we get error because the can't post means our method is get, not post. So we are sending the request. You can see author is not defined, means you can go to the Auth middleware and write there capital H. We write there S1, so we get their error. Write the capital and go to the Postman and send the request. Here you can see why we get this error unauthorized user, because we don't edit the authorization token there. Now we want to go to the user login and copy this token and go to the user profile. In the front of barrier paste this token. Now we are sending. You can see we are getting 200 success message and welcome to user profile with all the user data. But when you remove this token and then send the request, you can get unauthorized user, because without token database don't know who are you, and when you give the token, the database give you the data. If you don't know where this data is stored, then go to the vscode.env file, and here you can see your database name. My database name is Auth app. Go to the MongoDB and click here localhost and go to the Auth app. My database name is Auth app. So you can see there Bhavesh Yadav and Dev app. All the detail is stored in the MongoDB.